I think that modern metal music has become too clean. What's good, YouTube? Brody here again, another video. About a month ago, I made a video and beat, and it sounds like this. And there are a couple comments on that video that I wanted to kind of address because I feel like it's a situation that's been happening within like the world of modern metal and preferences and a splitting of paths, if you will. On this clip, I had a handful of people say that, oh, this is peaking, this is clipping, this is flat and compressed, this is like overly done. And I think that that raises some points that I've been feeling very strongly within metal music. A lot of the things that really drew me into metal music and heavy music in the first place that I think is missing from a lot of modern music. Now, this is just my personal creative opinion and voice. This is not me talking negatively on any type of music. This is just me personally saying where I come from and where I suspect others that feel similarly come from as well. I think that modern metal music has become too clean. I think that there are some trends in the past decade that have pushed production more and more so in the realm of like a 2010s pop music or EDM type of production, which again, I think in the right situation is awesome, but it's not a one size fits all type of thing. I think that a lot of metal music could benefit from being more aggressive and more like uncaring. I mean, if you think about metalcore in general, it came from the early wave of hardcore and metal coming together, both genres that are very like noisy, very aggressive, very like unabashedly angry. And hardcore music stemmed from punk, which is even more so within that world. I think between my time, I spent the past like 5 to 8 years really focusing on rap production and a lot of rap music. Through my time in that world, have realized that I think underground rap music is one of the more like punk adjacent, punk leaning scenes, in that sense of like not caring, making things loud, making things raw for the sake of emotion pushing through. Okay, when you go to the beginnings of heavy music in general, of loud sort of guitars, of especially screaming vocals. The reason I think screaming is a big one too. I think that things have gone from an expression of emotion into an aesthetic that you are replicating in a way. If you think about like screaming in general on a song, like when do you scream in real life? When you scream, that is because you are feeling an emotion so strongly that the only way to get that out is to scream at the top of your lungs. I think that following that mindset lets you think about like the intent of the music, the intent of the sound selection. I think that with screaming being something that's been happening for decades now, some people are learning to scream without thinking about like the whys of their screaming. They're like, oh, this sounds cool, I'm gonna learn how to do it. And then they go on, they learn a tutorial, which again, I'm not advocating to mess up your voice, but they learn it classically, they figure out all the ways to technically do it perfectly without thinking about the behind the scenes, like why they are doing it, you know what I mean? Like, again, not saying you have to be angry, but when you're making music, I think you need to go into the world of the emotion that it's in, not in a destructive way, but if you are wanting to make aggressive music, I think that there should be something within you that you're channeling to bring that aggression out. I think that making the vocal take be perfect, making the song be mixed as clean as possible becomes a point where you're sucking out everything that made the genre, or made like the emotion what it is. Again, this is not discrediting any bands that do follow this. I think there's a lot of cool within that scene, but it's something that we're seeing be done without the intent. Like there's bands that are making things so surgically tight and polished because that is the goal, and I think that's cool. But I think there's something to be said for the very chaotic, messy, earnest, raw kind of feeling you get. It reminds me of like where I came into heavy music in the early 2000s within like metalcore, post-hardcore, deathcore, all of that. A bunch of like teenage kids making the craziest music that they can and channeling their angst into something powerful, you know? I want to like not lose that. There's definitely like a disconnect between realms of bands. For example, the new Knocked Loose album I think is so good. It's the most like unabashedly heavy music, and as they've grown in popularity, they've grown in like extremeness too. And I think that hearing their music is something that like you can feel the emotion behind it. It's so loud, it's so obnoxious, it's so ridiculous, it's so ridiculous that it almost feels camp in a way, but I think that makes it feel that much more like real and earnest that it has that. Yeah, going back to my video though, and this demo, my intentions with it were to, again, thinking about early metalcore, post-hardcore, underground rap music, hardcore music, punk, a lot of like messier genres. I wanted to intentionally clip. I wanted to make the master blown out. I wanted to emulate like the loudness wars of the era of music I grew up on. I know it's a controversial thing now, but if you're trying to emulate the sound of like the early 2000s, late 90s, then you're going to limit the crap out of your song until it sounds the way that the songs did in that era. Not saying that's good or bad, but that is like an artistic choice. I think doing things like limiting hard, making things loud, adding a lot of distortion, intentionally clipping things, and not being afraid to like ride your master. I think that the red dot that shows up in your DAWs that shows you're clipping makes people nervous, because makes people nervous in a way that they didn't in the past, because when people are mixing on like an old Neve board or an old SSL board, they're riding those faders into clipping all the time, but you're not getting that negative feedback of the red dot that makes you think it's bad. And those sound awesome. It really takes the transients and puts them in a nice space. Obviously in digital and a DAW, you're not going to get that clipping through there, but in my mastering chain, I account for that by having layers of saturation and soft clipping throughout the chain. That way nothing is actually clipping in a bad way at the end, but they are intentionally getting their transients squashed if I choose to do so. Again, totally an intentional point. I can make a clean mix. I have in the past. I like do if the song calls for it, keep that clarity, but if the song is an obnoxious breakdown and double drop D with 808s and like loud screaming vocals, I'm not gonna mix it clean. I feel like that's the issue there. That's the weird like dissonance between the production style and the song itself. Yeah, I'm kind of tangent, kind of rant for this one. This is a little bit different of a video, but I'm hoping that I can show my perspective here and kind of find people that feel similarly through posting this video. Not meaning to be inflammatory, not meaning to be clickbaity, not meaning to like make people angry, but meaning to like start a discussion about the differences of lanes of metalcore, post-hardcore, metal music. Thinking about like bands like Knocked Loose, Early Under Oath from First to Last, Norma Jean, Static Dress, Split Chain as newer ones. A lot of the artists that I've been working with, we've been feeling that similar draw to that era of music and trying to modernize and dirty up our production in a way because of that. That's about it. That's what I have for this video. I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to explain my thought process going into metal music and heavier music, rock music in general. Hopefully you guys feel the same. Yeah, appreciate you guys. And with that being said, peace out.